History tends to celebrate the giants, empires with gold-plated armies, fleets that stretched beyond the horizon, and rulers who believed God was on their side. But this isn't their story. This is about the wars that were never supposed to be won. The battles where farmers faced tanks, rebels fought empires, and entire nations were written off before the first shot was fired. And somehow, against all logic, all odds, and all sense, they didn't just survive, they won. Not forever, not cleanly, but enough to prove that courage can, occasionally, outmaneuver history itself. Let's start with a story about a man who turned grief into artillery and taught one of the largest armies on earth what it means to underestimate a woman. It's 1943, and the Soviet Union is bleeding. Entire villages are gone, swallowed by the German invasion. Somewhere in the rubble of Smolensk, a 38-year-old woman named Maria Oktyabrskaya gets a telegram. Her husband, a tank officer, is dead. She doesn't cry, at least not in front of the neighbors. She just stares at the paper, folds it twice, and places it under a framed photograph of him in uniform. That night, she sells everything: the sewing machine, the furniture, even her wedding ring. 2 weeks later, she sends a letter to Joseph Stalin. It says, more or less, "I've sold my belongings. I wish to donate the money to build a tank. I will drive it myself to avenge my husband." Now, the Soviet bureaucracy didn't usually entertain letters like that. But grief mixed with propaganda, that's a potent fuel. So they took her up on it. They built her a T-34 tank and, almost mockingly, painted its name on the side: the Fighting Girlfriend. When Maria arrived at the training base, officers laughed. A widow in her late 30s who wanted to drive a war machine? Ridiculous. Until she started outperforming everyone. She learned how to fix the engine, reload the gun, and command under fire. Her crew loved her, not because she was extraordinary, but because she refused to die when everyone else would have given up. In her first battle, Maria's tank rolled straight into German lines, smashing through trenches like she was possessed. When her tank was hit, she jumped out, repaired it under machine gun fire, climbed back in, and kept fighting. By the third battle, no one was laughing anymore. Even German radio chatter started mentioning her, the woman in the T-34. But fate, as always, collects its debt. In January 1944, a shell fragment struck her head. She fell unconscious, never woke up again, and died 2 months later. The soldiers buried her with honors, and the Fighting Girlfriend became a legend whispered through the snow, a story of love so strong it became a weapon. In the end, one comrade wrote, "She didn't just avenge him, she joined him." Okay, that one hurts. Let's change continents. Our next story comes from a country that didn't even have an army, and still managed to humiliate one of the greatest empires on Earth. It's 1900 in West Africa. The British Empire is busy carving up everything it can reach, labeling whole civilizations as protectorates. In the Ashanti Kingdom, modern-day Ghana, people have tolerated the foreigners long enough. But then the British governor, Sir Frederick Hodgson, makes one small but fatal mistake. He demands to sit on the golden stool, a sacred symbol believed to contain the soul of the entire Ashanti people. It's like asking to borrow someone's god. The Ashanti Council listens in silence. Then a queen mother named Ya Ashantewa, in her 60s, stands up. She looks around at the gathered men, chiefs, elders, warriors, and says, "If you, the men of Ashanti, will not go forward, then we will. We, the women, will fight the white men. We will fight until the last of us falls in the battlefields. That was the moment the British lost the moral war, even if they didn't know it yet. Ya Ashantewa raised an army of 5,000. They had old muskets, hunting rifles, and sheer willpower. For months, they surrounded the British fort at Kumasi, cutting supply lines, raiding caravans, and turning the jungle into a trap. The British eventually broke through, but the embarrassment was permanent. It took 1,400 colonial troops, artillery, and endless reinforcements to subdue a rebellion led by a grandmother with a golden staff. Ya Ashantewa was captured and exiled, but her rebellion became the spark that outlived empires. When Ghana gained independence in 1957, her name was the first one written in the textbooks. She fought the war humanity wasn't supposed to win, one historian later wrote, but she changed what humanity believed was possible. From Africa, we move east to a cold valley where warriors fought not for land, but for dignity. This next one feels less like history and more like myth. It's September 12th, 1897. A lonely outpost called Saragahi stands between two fortresses in the hills of modern-day Pakistan. Inside are just 21 Sikh soldiers guarding communication lines for the British Indian Army. At dawn, they see dust rising in the distance, 10,000 Afghan tribesmen advancing. The soldiers could have fled. No one would have blamed them. But their commander, Havildar Ishar Singh, simply says, "We will stay. The world must know how men can die." The Afghans demand surrender. The Sikhs refuse. Then the attack begins. Waves of warriors crash against the small fort. Arrows, bullets, smoke, chaos. The Sikhs fight like men possessed. One climbs the tower to keep signaling the nearby forts, sending the same message over and over. Enemy approaching, still fighting, request reinforcements. None came. For 6 hours they held the line. When ammunition ran out, they fought with bayonets. When bayonets broke, they used their hands. At the end, all 21 were dead. When the British retook the post the next day, they found hundreds of enemy bodies piled around the walls. The Afghan leader reportedly said, "These were not men, they were lions." All 21 soldiers received the Indian Order of Merit, the highest award for bravery then available to native troops. Today, every year on Sargahi Day, the Indian Army salutes them. Not because they killed many, but because they showed something almost extinct in war, a calm acceptance of death in exchange for honor. They didn't win, but they made losing meaningless. Our final story moves to the 20th century, to a war almost no one remembers, fought by people who weren't supposed to exist at all. Winter, 1939. The Soviet Union invades Finland with 500,000 men, 3,000 tanks, and more artillery than the Finns could even imagine. Finland? They have 300,000 soldiers, most of them farmers, loggers, and hunters, and only 30 tanks. Moscow predicts it will take 2 weeks to conquer the country. It doesn't, because the Finns don't fight like an army, they fight like ghosts. They ski silently through forests, wearing white camouflage, striking from behind snowdrifts and vanishing again. They move faster than tanks. They burn Soviet convoys, steal their food, and vanish back into the fog. There's one name that still echoes from that winter. Simo Häyhä, the White Death. A farmer turned sniper, Simo killed over 500 enemy soldiers in just 100 days. He wore no scope. It could reflect sunlight and give him away. He filled his mouth with snow to hide his breath in the freezing air. The Soviets put a bounty on his head. They sent entire artillery barrages just to hit one man. They never did. When the war finally ended, Finland had lost territory, but not its soul. They'd fought the largest army on earth to a standstill. The world watched in disbelief. Even Churchill said, "Only Finland, superb, nay, sublime, in the jaws of peril." It wasn't supposed to be possible. But then, neither is human dignity. 4 wars, 4 impossible victories. A widow who turned grief into vengeance. A queen who fought with words sharper than steel. 21 soldiers who faced death with calm defiance, and a nation that turned snow into armor. Each of them faced a power they were never meant to defeat. Each of them refused to accept the math of fear. History calls them forgotten, but maybe that's just how memory works. It keeps the loudest conquerors and buries the quiet ones who actually change the rules. So tonight, remember this. Sometimes the world's smallest wars carry the biggest truths. Which of these do you think was most justified? And what would you have done if it were your home, your love, your land on the line?